Welcome to this episode of Pathway to Purpose. This is for the man married or in a relationship with a strong woman. And I just want to say it doesn't compete, it complements. Let me speak directly to something that most men won't say out loud. You love that she's strong, you admire her drive, you respect her intelligence, and you're proud of how she shows up in the world. And yet sometimes you feel yourself tighten, not because you want to compete, and not because you don't support her, but because something feels activated here inside. You may correct her faster than necessary. You push back in these small little conversations. You withdraw when she steps forward boldly. You feel irritated and you can't explain why. That tightening isn't about her strength. It's about you and your internal alignment of what's going on in here. So when the strength feels like pressure, one of the clearest symptoms is this. You don't feel insecure. I'm going to say that tongue in cheek because you may feel this insecure feeling. But you feel like you have to hold ground. It shows up as needing to make your point stronger, wanting the last word, feeling defensive in small moments, and quietly comparing instead of connecting. You would never call it competition, but internally something kind of shows up and braces here. And that bracing is exhausting because now the relationship becomes something you manage instead of something you could rest on the inside. What you actually want, you don't want to control. You want steadiness. You want to feel respected without forcing it. You want to lead without overpowering. You want strength that feels grounded, not reactive. You want a partnership at home. You want to collaborate when you're in the home. You want influence without insecurity. And influence it's coming from a deeper grounded place. And here's the deeper truth. When you're internally aligned, and I talk about this, your head, your heart, and your gut, when you're integrated and you're fully starting to understand more of who you are, her strength doesn't threaten you. It multiplies you. Strong women, grounded man. It's not competition. It's a compliment. And I talk about this grounded man, and I'll do a whole podcast on what that means. But it's more of this alignment coming from strength, feeling grounded, like you're not reacting. So the blueprint for strength, here's what most men miss. When you build a blueprint for your own gifts, when you get clear on who you are, how you lead, and what you bring, you stop reacting to her strength because you're anchored in yours. Most men never define what their inner blueprint is. They're unaware of. They're just reacting. I often say this about men. They're playing from a playbook that we don't even know where it came. Like, hey, we need to be this. We need to be that. We need to be dominating. They perform, they compete, and they adapt. But what really goes on? What they don't articulate and and check this out inside, guys, if you're listening to this. What are my core strengths? How do I lead naturally? Where is my emotional edge? What stabilizes me under pressure? What are my gifts in partnership? And I'm going to say this again. When you're with a strong woman, if you allow it to just not compete, but complement, then you start to grow. What happens is we're second guessing what's going on the inside. When you build this blueprint, something shifts. You stop measuring yourself against her. You start understanding yourself. And when you understand your gifts, you're able to support her at a much higher level. Not by shrinking, not by dominating, but by bringing stability, clarity, and grounded leadership into the relationship. And I created this RMIT, the Masculine Restorative Integration Theory, really about this. It was looking at this feminine and masculine energy and really what's missing on the masculine side and what needs to happen so that the woman could step more into who she is. And I talk all about that in that theory. I will put the theory in the link It is published in the American Journal of Men's Health. It's been really great, and I've been helping men and women in this powerful place. So like I said, when you understand your gifts, you're able to support her at a higher level. And you're not shrinking, you're not dominating, but by bringing this stability and clarity and grounded leadership. And tapping into your inner CEO. I call this your inner CEO comes online. Your life. You're the CEO of your life. The inner CEO is the integrated leader inside you. Not reactive, not defensive, not competing, but grounded. I teach a framework that helps men access this consistently, right? I actually did a whole presentation. I'll put a link in if you're interested in the masterclass on the alignment blueprint. And it's creating your blueprint, your goals in 4 categories of your life, and looking at this and starting to understand and uncover more of who you are. It's great. So here's the structure. It's awareness. Notice this internal tightening before it becomes a behavior. Regulation in your nervous system before responding. I teach that. That's so powerful. Integration. You align your head, your heart, and your gut. And what your head is your clarity, your heart is your connection, and your gut is your instinct. And starting to use that. And step 4, utilizing a blueprint activation. You define your gifts. You understand them. Not necessarily just define them, but become more of who you are and how they uniquely show up in your relationship with her. And I'm going to make this because how you do one thing is how you do all things, for sure. I say that all the time. So these things are a reflection and projection of what's going on the inside. And when you activate your blueprint, you don't feel overshadowed by the strength. You collaborate with it. You don't react to this powerful woman. You partner with her. And at the same, and that same integration carries into your career, into your business, into your family. You stop overproving in meetings, and with her. You collaborate better with everyone and your peers, your family, everywhere, and you lead without pressure. Grounded men don't dominate rooms, they stabilize them. Strong women, I want to talk to you here. You may be listening to this because your husband or your significant other, or you may not even be in a relationship. Maybe you've given up, listen, I need to find a grounded man. So if that's the case, reach out to me. Understand what a grounded man is, and then you could start to work towards that ideal in your life. So your strength's not the problem. So women, your strength's not the problem. Your ambition is not the issue. Your clarity is not too much. But ungrounded men experience your strength as pressure instead of partnership. And sometimes you might feel like you've had to dim yourself to keep the peace. You've actually tried to help him so that you could be more of who you are. I've worked with women in this space, and we've it's such a beautiful place, is women have taken over some of the roles that men have suppressed and not have stepped into. And I'm calling you out, guys. I've been there, I have to say. So you have to over-explain to avoid triggering defensiveness. You attract men who compete instead of complement. You don't need to shrink, but you do need a grounded partner. And so if this speaks to you, definitely reach out, and all the information will be in here in the show notes. So when a man builds his blueprint and anchors into his inner CEO, he can support your expansion as a woman. He could hold emotional steadiness, challenge you without competing, and lead without controlling. And that's not dominance, it's maturity. That's polarity with security. Understanding the masculine, feminine, and stepping into it. And when both partners are internally aligned, the relationship becomes powerful instead of tense, collaborative instead of competitive, and passionate instead of guarded. If something in this podcast, and this is a short podcast, stirred in you, not shame, but recognition, pay attention to it. That's awareness. When you build a blueprint for your gifts, when you integrate your head, heart, gut, when you activate your inner CEO, you stop competing with strength and you start complementing it. At home, your leadership, and your career. Because the man who knows who he is doesn't compete with power. He builds it. And so if this spoke to you, whether you're a man or woman, reach out. reach out into the comments here, wherever you see that. You will see the information. Visit me. Set up an appointment. I'd love to connect and hear how this shows up in your world. Thank you. And awesome. And share this with somebody who really might get a lot out of it. Share this. If you're a woman, share it with the man. If you're a man, maybe share it with your woman. This would be awesome. So have an awesome day, and thank you for tuning in.